So welcome to tonight's call. This is an info session for Reclaiming Nature Connection. It's a workshop that's going to be here in Asheville, May 10th and 11th. And we want to tell you a little bit about it and answer some questions, and hopefully you join us this spring. So just to start off, my name is Nikki Ann Feinberg, and I live here at Earth Haven Eco Village in Western North Carolina. And I am one of the directors of the School of Integrated Living, which is at Earth Haven. And we're one of the co-hosts of this workshop with the Academy of Forest Kindergarten Teachers. And we've been hosting this workshop together for, gosh, I think 8 years, if I am thinking correctly. And this is the East Coast conference or workshop. And out in California, where the Academy is based, they also have some West Coast workshops. So today, this one is about group dynamics and behaviors. So really guiding the young child with confidence and creativity. So we're going to do a bit of an introduction, and then we'll open it up for questions, and then we'll close. To say a little more, before I hand the mic over to Erin and Leah, the workshop is 2 days. It's from 9 to 4, and it's based in Asheville. So this is our first year that we've done it off Earth Haven property when we're on the East Coast here. So we thought we'd experiment and do it closer to downtown Asheville, where there's public transportation, there's easy accommodations and food. When we've done this before, it's been a residential program for those who want to stay here. And we're trying to make it something where it's less of a price tag and just easier on people's schedules if they are local. And if you're coming in from out of town, it just gives a lot of time for integration in the evenings. And it's at Haw Creek Commons, which is East Asheville. And we have a number of ways to kind of support those who wouldn't be able to come otherwise for financial barriers. So there is a scholarship rate that's on the website for when you register. So with that, I want to turn it over to either one of you, Erin or Leah, to introduce yourselves, and then we'll talk about the program.
Thanks, Nikki Ann. Thanks, folks, for joining us this evening. I'm Leah Grippo. Erin and I are currently the Academy of Forest Kindergarten Teachers with adjunct supporters like Nikki Ann and a couple other folks who come and teach with us regularly. I have been working in the field of early childhood education since 1989, and every time I say that, I'm a little bit flabbergasted that that's true. Um, and I have worked in a variety of settings, but I've been working in the field, running a forest school since 1998. And I think Wild Roots was, I think, the third forest school in North America, as far as I can track down. It's been hard to track down those first two early ones. Um, and I'm really genuinely still in love with my work. And nothing makes me happier than playing in the woods with young children. They're my favorite people. I love being with people who haven't forgotten how to play and for whom all possibilities exist. And I'm grateful and grateful for how much I've learned about the art of being human through working with young children, how much they've taught me. Um, so I'm still directing Wild Roots currently in Santa Barbara. My youngest child is about to turn 20 this week, which is also a little flabbergasting. And Erin and I have worked together for also kind of a ridiculously long time, even though we no longer live in the same community. We did start out working together in the same community. Um, I I think the only thing I'll add is that because I don't know that we'll otherwise introduce the academy itself. But the Academy of Forest Kindergarten Teachers really grew out of us seeing a need in the field that people were contacting us, asking all kinds of questions about how to start forest schools and what to do on the ground. And we realized, oh, there's no place for people to study right now. When we started, there was no place for folks to study at the time, um, because it's not just like learning the H. Shields model of nature connection or um, learning previous methods of nature camps, for instance. And it's not just early childhood. There's something really unique that happens when those components of studying human development as closely as we study the rest of the natural world come together. There's a synergistic magic that I'm grateful to be a part of, and that's how this was born. I'm grateful for my colleagues. I'm going to pass it on to Erin.
Hello, everyone. Erin Dews. I know it says Boehm on my screen, but I have a new name. Very proud of that because it's easier to spell. I have been teaching and working in early childhood education since 1994. So we've both been in this work since the 1900s. And Leah and I have some things in common that we both also were mentor teachers in college lab schools for early childhood. And so when we met each other shortly after that experience in two different colleges, we found we had a lot in common. And we have for a very long time had experience in mentoring teachers. So with that skill, as Leah explained, the Academy has been a passion of ours to not only get to work with the young ones and their families, but to also get to mentor teachers and get to have such incredible weekends and trainings in the summer, getting to know our colleagues and getting to know how many people are out there actually doing really, really good work. And when we all come together, it's kind of like a gigantic nature nerd party. So we really love this work. And then we get to take this back home to our communities and we get to be the ones who add another voice to the child's experience growing up. I have my background is also in working with community building. I'm also a director of a nonprofit, a community arts center here in Bishop, California. I live in the on the east side of the Sierra Nevada mountain range. So I'm up in the high desert near Yosemite, between Yosemite and Death Valley. So Leah and I cross the desert often to work together. The Mojave Desert is between us. Um, so I work in community building, and I also work. I work with a lot of different age groups. I work with middle schoolers. I work with high schoolers. I do work with early childhood. I'm not currently running a forest school as I did for 10 years here in Bishop. It was a Wild Roots sister program. But I still work with the families, and Leah and I are both doing a lot of parenting work right now, which has been really exciting. I also work with the foster kids. I'm an advocate for children who are in custody of the state. So we use this work, we apply this work, we stay in this relational learning model through all these different types of interactions with young ones and their families. And so when we come together for these trainings, all of this is incorporated.
Mhm. Thanks, Leah. Thanks, Erin. I want to, just because we're centering this workshop this year around group dynamics and behaviors, which I'd love for you to speak why we're doing it. And we could have done it any year. We're doing it this year. We haven't done it before. Um, and so what are the behaviors that you're seeing? And is it different than before, more than before? Like what's going on with the group dynamics of kids that's like calling the attention of adults to like pay more attention and maybe skill up to meet them where they are? If you could both speak to that. and then we're going to open the floor for you all to ask questions.
Shall I start, Erin? Um, Thanks for that question. I will say, what I'm seeing, and when I ask folks around the country what they're seeing, I'm hearing some common threads, and that is, on the one hand, for the adults, for parents of young children in this time in particular, seeing a great deal of anxiety, more so than I've seen in the past. Um, uh, uh, and a lot of varieties of anxiety that's making this human behavior. I don't think of it so much as a specialized task. Parenting didn't make it into the English language dictionary even until 1970. It's for most of human history just been a human behavior. But it's getting harder and harder for folks, it seems, to know how to do what they're doing and how to trust themselves. And that's troubling to me because we already live in a time where bringing up young ones has tremendous challenges. You know, folks are isolated in a way that we haven't been through most of human history. Um, so now on the adult end, that's playing a role in why now. Um, and in terms of behaviors in children, seeing that anxiety reflected in behavior, in that we understand that behavior is communication. Yeah. Especially for people who are just learning language and barely even getting to know who they themselves are. I mean, that I'm in my 50s and I'm still on that journey, right? So that the children with their behaviors are asking a lot of questions, and that the adults are finding difficulty in knowing how to respond to those questions. Um, and I'm not faulting adults for that. I think um, it is genuinely harder to know how to respond in these times. Um, so, one of the things that I see, and I'm going to pass the baton to you in a minute, Erin, because I know you and I work in somewhat different communities, and even though we're seeing similar outcomes, they have different reasonings, even though the behavior looks similar. Um, One of the things I'm seeing amongst the children is they don't know how to enter a space. They come into a space and they don't know what to do in the transition. They haven't learned the small rituals of hellos and goodbyes, and it makes them anxious. And they don't know how to do that transition. These are kind of simple old things, right? To know how to say hello, how to greet, how to enter a space. But because they don't know, they often enter chaotically, asking, "How do I do this?" with their behavior. Um, they're I'm seeing children struggle with small disappointments in ways that, of course, small children struggle with disappointments. We're learning how to be in a body, and that's not easy. And I'm seeing that show up in ways that I've not seen before. And yeah, really just seeing the request amongst the children for clarity in behavior from us adults. And I say specifically behavior because I think a lot of times we lean on our words when the young child understands movement and behavior much better than words. Erin, I'm going to pass that to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I do agree with that. I would also say that we're also seeing children looking up to adults for the indicators on what is the appropriate response in this situation. And we're noticing, because, as Leah mentioned, that the adults have a higher state of anxiety right now. it has been reported in our country recently that parents have the highest anxiety rate than they've ever had, and we all understand the events that have rolled out in society that would put parents at risk for being anxious and fearful. But is creating space for the children to not feel like they have a lot of direction about what it means to go through a day and how to behave in an appropriate manner. And so we often notice that children aren't aren't in a state that's very kind or polite sometimes. That we hear a lot of demanding, we hear a lot of I'm going to have what I want right now. And there is a bit of I don't maybe parents what it looks like is they maybe don't want their child to ever be uncomfortable or disappointed. Um, and that's fair because right now it might be just the coping of trying to get through a day. But it's quite a disservice to the young ones to not be given the appropriate cues for how to be in society and how to be in community with each other. And so boundaries is something that we hear in parenting and teaching a lot. We hear that word boundaries. Leah and I have found over the course of our work that it's slightly uncommon for people to actually understand what a boundary is and how to create one, how to hold one, maybe what a boundary's purpose even is. How do we figure out what the right boundary is for the behavior? And so we find that working with groups of adults that work with young ones or parents who have young ones, that this is one of the practices that really serves the work. And we go away from these experiences actually feeling really competent and ready to support families and the little ones as they're trying to navigate during these times. You want to add to that, Leah?
Yeah, just one thing, and that is we call this behavior and group dynamics. We also put group dynamics in that. So I think I'd like to address that a little bit. And there's young children, Erin likes to say often early childhood is its own island. And part of early childhood is spent working with older people building a bridge to middle childhood, right? And steering group dynamics is quite a subtle art with the little ones. And and I use that word steering. Erin and I often will talk about where the word mentor comes from, and that the first known use of the word mentor comes actually from the Odyssey, from Homer's Odyssey, where Telemachus is in a boat, and he's his helmsman, the one steering the boat from behind. His name is Mentor, and when he needs to guide this lost young man, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, speaks through him. And what does a helmsman do? What does someone steering the back of a boat do? They make tiny little corrections to stay true to course, right? I think this image that the word mentor comes out of is so powerful for us in knowing how to steer, that oftentimes it's quite subtle. And so we really want to work with, and we do work with pretty deeply in our trainings as well, of how do we steer groups with a lot of different personalities and individual needs? How do we make those little adjustments that really help energy to flow well? And then also, how do we make a lot of space for all the messiness that comes with being a part of a human group? Because it's not always sweet and pretty. It's messy, and that's part of its genius. That's part of our beauty, is that we rub up against each other. We hone each other sometimes with a little abrasion even, right? And so that fine, delicate balance between steering for harmony, but also trusting that groups need a little bit of conflict among us so that we can hone ourselves and so that we can be better members of groups. And how do we work with that great need for belonging that we all have, right? Um, yeah, I think that's enough said for out of me on that topic.
Thank you both. Well, I want to open the floor to those on the call today. And really, I think the first layer to invite in would be, what are your questions that help you decide if this is a place that you want to spend your time, whether it's in this weekend or other moments with the women from the academy? But we just know that everyone's time is really precious and it's a big deal to commit 2 days. And so if you're on the fence, like, is there information you can gain from this call that helps you be clear on what side of the fence you're on, if it's to be, figured out through this call? I know time also supports clarity. So please just unmic yourself, ask your questions. I have more questions too if you all run out of questions. And your questions can be logistical or philosophical or practical, any level.
What makes doing like this type of work and spending this time with kids so fulfilling and worth it for you?
There's so many reasons why. First of all, young people are definitely my favorite group in society. Have the most interesting conversations. They have the best perspective, and they're fun. They play. I am still playful. I want to stay playful. And getting to be with the people that are naturally still playful is such a gift. They guide you, they give you hope, they remind you that there's so much to see below your waistline. I also, I'm pretty passionate about community building, and we all understand that tending the youngest is going to tend the whole. And we have, we are, I believe we're all born connected, nature connected. So I look at it more as protecting that connection, keeping that connection open, thriving, strong, rather than noticing what disconnects what creates disconnect, and then how do we protect that? For me, I see this work as my duty as a human being to be one of the protectors of us going forward and staying in relationship. I just want to say that I grew up not liking school at all. Did not like school. Did not like getting up in the morning. People would say to me as I got older, you should be a teacher. And I'd say, hell no, I hate school. I don't want to go there anymore. I want to be free. And I would go get a teaching job on the side. I'd like go to a preschool after school and like be an aide or help when I was young. But I insisted I would never be a teacher. So I didn't get that escape. I was born with this, would we say, I don't know, it's my gift. So I was so fortunate to find out that I could participate in this profession in different ways. And now that I have found it, it is absolutely the best.
Thanks, Erin.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That put a big smile on my soul.
Well, I'm going to sneak in here to just give a different vantage point because I don't work in the same way as Erin and Leah with children. But we did all meet in Santa Barbara. I used to work for an organization called Wilderness Youth Project. And I was gifted by with a statement that my old boss said, which was we're trying to work ourselves out of a job. The work I was doing was nature-based connection with young children and all the way up through the families, actually. And I said, what do you mean by that, working ourselves out of a job? He said, well, we're the surrogates for the aunties and uncles in the village. And so he planted this seed in my head for the vision of living in a village. And it, long story short, I moved to Earth Haven Eco Village after working there, and being a part of that community. And I kind of made this commitment to myself of not working in a program, even though I could still work with youth in this region. It's needed, it's available. I have peers and support, and there's organizations doing it. Or I did do it a little bit at Earth Haven for a bit, and I actually chose to live into the family unit for me. So I chose not to birth children. So I want family in my life. So I've signed myself up as an auntie, as like a full-time job. And so that's the form I have, is this, in this case, an intentional community, but as a loose role, just auntie in life to the children, of my sister's children who are blood, and that's the only blood, and I don't live near them. So these village children are who I'm committed to. And I would say for me, it's the most direct path of becoming the elder I want to be. Like, it's holding me accountable to growing myself up. That little girl who has her unhealed stuff of the needs she didn't get met when she was a little girl. And so that's a relational wound. And so for me, it's being in relationship with the parents, the other aunties and uncles, and the children. So I have this form that I'm not going to school for and I'm not working in, but I need the remodeling. I need to see it differently than how it lives in my bones that hasn't been worked out yet. And so for me, this conference actually has filled that role. Like, I'm like committed to bringing these women to the East Coast. So this community, our communities over here just have a little bit closer to travel and not so far. So thanks for heeding that call and coming.
I think both of you pretty much said it all. The only thing I would have to add is, Colby, I sometimes think that if people found out how much fun I have doing what I do, they'd tell me you're not supposed to have that much fun. That can't be work.
That's the good stuff.
So there's a question, is it geared towards younger children or all?
Well, thank you. Thanks for that question. Yeah, our workshops are always centered and focused around early childhood, and yet they have always been helpful for folks working with all ages. Right. We do have folks attend working with all ages. The reason being is early childhood is where everybody starts. It's where we all start. Those needs that we have in early childhood, they don't go away. We just layer on new parts as we get older. But the things that we learn about holding a human being at the beginning are always relevant at any age. And I'll say, I think in adolescence, especially so. But I will say I'm going to pass the baton to Erin, because while I primarily do still work with little ones, Erin really does work with children of all ages. And I think you can speak more eloquently than I can to that, Erin.
Yeah, I'm really glad the question came up, because it is absolutely true. I was just out at a public school talking to a teacher a few hours ago. And she said, "Oh, I wish I could leave my classroom and do forced schoolwork like you all do." And we were just talking about how you don't need to leave your classroom, and you don't need to be only working with young ones. Um, when I come into public school, I'll do things like come and do an oral storytelling, or just take everyone on a wander outside of campus into the desert. Um, it really is, to be honest, it's the teachers who can't wait for me to get there. they can't wait for me. Are you going to tell a story? Are you the relational work, the nature connection work is helping everyone remember who we are, helping everyone remember why we're alive, why we want to be around each other, why we are in wonder, what even creates our need to be in relationships. It's anything. I tell everybody. I have 4 young adult kids, and I tell all of them, take early childhood courses because you will use it for everything. Any job you have, anything you do, because child development just means this is how humans are put together. This is how they relate to one another. So I don't know why it's not required for everyone. I guess we would just be too peaceful and too connected for if we all took early childhood, we would just be like, okay, let's take care of each other, you know? So it's never irrelevant. And we always are during our workshops, we are happy to adapt and talk about all of these theories and philosophies for all ages.
I run actually a public school forest day program for TK all the way through 8th grade. And I'm noticing with especially the older grades, it is really hard. And I'm also an ANFT trained forest therapy guide. And so I'm trained in the way of the guide and circles. And so it's really important to me, the relationships, the community. And so that's definitely a huge aspect of forest school. Are you guys finding it's so hard to get the kids to not talk over each other? We use a talking piece, especially during like sharing moments. But there's still kids that will have side conversations. Are you seeing that? And how do you guys, what's your level of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just letting it go, some of the side talking.
Thank you, Bethany. I'll speak to that because I've been working with the middle school group for this year. And 2 things. That's the symptom of, I believe, okay, I can't say I know perfectly, but what I've tracked is that's a symptom of us having being constantly stimulated by talk and visuals. So it's quiet is something that they're tending to struggle with a little bit.
Yeah.
The way that I've started to tend that is by making sure that I come and I tell a story. Oral storytelling that's rich in imagery, language that provokes imagery. You can kind of, to be a little crude about it, like hijack their imagination and get them to feel stimulated by something that's actually really neurologically nourishing and connecting. They complain at first when I start telling a story in the beginning. Oh, we don't want to hear it. It takes too long. And I say, yeah, I know. And I just keep telling anyway. And then pretty soon I've got a whole group going like this. So even the toughest kids, I do work with the children who are on probation or pre-probation, the kids who are all kicked out of class because they can't seem to be communicated with. I would say that. And then also, it's a great opportunity to also say to yourself, well, what are they talking about? And how do I actually draw in what their interests and their values are right now? What if I'm the listener for the ones who are needing to talk? And what if you model that? They're not used to being listened to either. So, and then the last part, and this is the development part, right, is that is the most important thing at that stage in development for a human, is relating to our peers and to getting
Oh.
feedback from those who are our own age. So it's a healthy impulse. It's really frustrating as a teacher. It's still really healthy to also know that there's time for quiet and that it's okay to be appropriately quiet and listen as well, because listening is a skill that will get us really far in this lifetime. So yeah, there's a couple tools and then a couple tracking of what are they talking about. I've learned a lot by sometimes I'll bring a handwork project or an art project, and they're like, we don't want to do it, or they'll give me a hard time. I'll say, okay, and then I'll just do it in front of them. But I get to hear everything they're talking about. And wow, I learn a lot about what to do next time I show up from listening to that. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Also, can I just say, Bethany, you have a forest school program from K through 8. I just have to say out loud, wow, I want to know about that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
We're in our first year piloting it and ready to develop more for next year.
Where do you live?
I'm in Chico, California, Northern California.
You're in California? Okay, we'll connect soon.
Great. Yeah, I've had my eyes on you. Brian Kehoe, I work with Brian Kehoe, who trained with you guys many, many years ago down in Santa Barbara.
Yes, say hello to Brian for us, please. He's fun. He's a playful one too.
Small world. Any other burning questions to support your process? Yeah, I feel very strongly that how you all teach really works for me. And I've seen it work for so many others. And I'm curious if you know of, I don't know, it doesn't have to be different than others, but like what is going on that you're also seeing that's working for the spaces you're holding and the instruction you're giving? Like anything you want to comment on how you all roll and what that looks like in action when we're together. Reveal your secrets.
Well, there's a lot there. Definitely don't have time to speak to all of that. I will say, one of the things that I think that Aaron and I do together quite well that does make the work different is we come into every program with a very detailed, down to the minute kind of plan. And if you were to look at our plan at the end of a program, you would see that pretty much everything has been rewritten as we go along. Which is why nobody who shows up to one of our trainings ever gets a syllabus, because you'd just be so disoriented. We just don't go according to our plan usually. And that is because we really, really believe in paying very close attention to people, paying very close attention. Reading behavior is communication, seeing needs, listening to questions, and adapting based on what we're seeing is needed and what's being asked of us. So I think our adaptability is one of the things that does make our work somewhat unique. I think oftentimes when we go into trainings, people have a plan and they stick to it, which fair, totally fair. I would say that's not entirely our style. In fact, it's not our style at all. I think that's part of our work. I think another part of our work is excuse me. We've talked about this quite some bit, Aaron, you and I, that we're pretty dedicated to being authentic. We don't really want to BS anybody ever, including saying, I don't know, right? I just don't know. Or this is what I think, but that doesn't mean much, right? But also authentically sharing what we've seen. And we're pretty dedicated to that. I also think that dedication to authenticity creates a space that seems to allow folks to be authentic and not have to hide. which I think is one of the ways that we allow ourselves to truly learn is when we relax. Yeah. It's really hard to learn when you're anxious. It's not a learning state. And so I think that's a really big part of what makes what we do different. Um, I think otherwise, I think Erin and I are kind of geeks, Nikki Ann, if I may use that term, in that um, we really literally will send each other articles or call each other to talk for 3 hours about this one little like the conversation where I called and said, "Oh my God, I saw this thing with the birds and it made me think, do the birds have a corpus callosum in their brain?" And then I looked it up and they don't. And then we will talk for 3 hours about what that means, right? And how that explains how birds behave relative to humans and how we're the same and different. We're geeks like that, right? We get excited about the work. It's not just our jobs, right? We get excited about learning about the development of all species and the relationships between all of us. We're deeply, deeply dedicated to the work of nature connection, and we one of the things that I think is unique in the nature connection movement about what we're doing is oftentimes the nature connection movement looks at the development of all kinds of species except humans. And it's that weird forgetting the observer is a part of what's happening phenomenon that happens to us humans, where, you send people out to describe a room that they have to be in to describe, and they'll describe everything about it except that they were there, right? We forget that we are a part of it. We just see ourselves as the observer and therefore removed. And I think that the fact that we geek out the same amount about bird brains as we do human brains, for instance, is part of what makes our work unique.
True. And also birds do dream and they do practice learning how to hunt while in their dreams. It's pretty cool because our brains are really similar. We could go on for 3 hours because we've already geeked out on this. But well, I see we have two past students also here in the audience. So if you have something you'd like to say about why we're different, or why you think maybe I'm dangerously asking them to talk. The other thing I would say though is that there's a lot of there has started to be a lot of nature connection work being done, but I have not found very many resources or people who are adapting this work to speak to early childhood development. And so the part that we really protect and that we really work hard is to make sure that we are really educated in human development, whether it's neurological, physiological, spiritually, biologically, all of the other things. Just like the question about middle schoolers, the first thing my brain does is saying, okay, well, where are we as humans at that time in our life developmentally? So how do we respond appropriately and with respect towards each human and where they're at in their stage of development? So it's knowing those things that's really, really, really helpful in our work even for the parents. What stage are they at in development, in their human development? Yeah. And I don't think I'm not sure that's very common. We've been doing this, we've been working together for over 15 years. And I think just now have we started to find a couple sources where their early childhood is starting to be a part of that conversation, of that nature connection conversation.
I'll also add that the workshops are really experiential. And so we are practicing play as participants. We are getting to be in that receiving role that children usually are with the guidance. And that's been really nourishing, like with the games and the songs and laughter and the other people's stories as well. It just really fills in the experience to be this little pop-up village in quite a short amount of time. So yeah, we're getting to embody it.
You did bring up a question in my heart, Erin. I want to know those resources. And then I'll speak to, so I am one of those students that was priorly here. I'm very pregnant and I'm definitely not making it I know, hi. Yeah, hi Mancy too. And so she was my cohort. It was a good year. We had a good time. So I'm definitely not making it to any other conferences, but it just speaks to how much I love hearing Leah and Erin. And I've been wanting to go to Asheville, and so I figured I would just jump on and just bathe in your presence for a minute. And I mean, I've gotten great resources from you guys before. Generally, it's true. It was either human development or nature connection or mentorship, but kind of siloed. And so I am really curious to see what these resources that are coming up for you guys are. And hopefully one day I'll get to meet you over there in Earth Haven as well, because I hear it's a special place. I was hoping to maybe make it there in September with a baby. Maybe.
I could jump on for a second. I'm Manzi, and I used to live in California, Northern California. And now I am located in Vermont, so I'm on the East Coast. So I was curious what the East Coast version of these guys looked like. And yeah, I've done all 3 trainings and graduated from the academy. Yeah, woo! Very exciting. And I also went to the storytelling conference that y'all did in Oakland, California, back in probably the fall of 2018 when I had a tiny little baby with me. And so now I have a home-based childcare program that's like licensed with the state of Vermont, and it's a nature-based early childhood nature connection program. I'm on like a 10-acre homestead here, so we're outside as much as possible. I kind of have like a little outdoor classroom, and I think it's cute. And I'm very proud of it, and credit you all with, I mean, honestly, changing my life. I think it was already kind of headed a certain way, but I found you at kind of the perfect moment, and it really just, I got home from my first training and I was like, honey, we're having a baby. Let's do it. I like know how to be with kids now. It's going to be really great. I know everything. And here I am. uh, that was 2017. But anyway, yeah, you guys are great. And the storytelling conference was a game changer for me. And it really brought, it just like reinforced everything that I was learning in the trainings in the summer, specifically about storytelling. Like it just was so focused on that in a way that I walked away being like, wow, okay, I actually can do this now with confidence. And I want to say that's one of my strengths here at Wild Strawberry Forest School. And it's true. It's like really amazing when you can get a group to just go slack jaw, like a group who's been like driving you crazy and running around. It's amazing. Anyway, and so I'm just really excited to hear more on a fresh topic from you all. And yeah, so I think I'm going to make the trek down all the way to North Carolina. Thanks.
Thanks, Monty, Natalia. We have time for one more question, and then we'll close out. Going once, going twice.
I'm just going to give Natalia one resource. Shh, don't tell anybody else, Natalia. No, one of those people that Erin and I have seen starting to really show up in the field is Darsha Narvaez. And that, if you're looking for her, it's Narvaez. Darsha Narvaez is doing beautiful work. And she also has an insane tome that's about this fat called um what is it? The Neurobiology and Human Morality. And this woman's a heavy hitter.
Well, if you have any questions that come up after this recording, feel free to reach out to any of us and we'll get back to you. And just a reminder, it's May 10th and 11th, and it's in Asheville, the Reclaiming Nature Connection workshop whose theme is group dynamics and behavior, guiding the young child with creativity and confidence. And as we've spoken to in this call, the skills are applicable to children of all ages. And feel free to share this with friends. There's room for you and maybe it's colleagues or people who are mentoring or parents who might need it. It happens to be Mother's Day weekend, and I just have this dream that mothers get gifted this of we just value you so much. Here, go. We'll take care of the kids. And the mom gets to totally just be loved up in this community scene with others who are also working with kids and raising kids. And inviting the papas and the aunties and the uncles and the cousins and the grandmas and grandpas and teachers and principals and everyone else too, who are beyond the moms. But so please check us out. And thanks so much for your time today. Erin and Leah, if you want to say anything before we close, please do.
We're not having fun. We're just not serious enough.
I just want to thank everybody. Thank you, Nikki, for hosting. It's always such a treat to get to go all the way across the country and be in your big basket of all the good things you do. So thank you so much for having us. We're really looking forward to it.